There's a lot of weird in the state of Tennessee, and I'm not just talking about Memphis. They got weird in every corner, but the 8 towns on this list take it a step further. Let's take a look. Stop number 1, the Bell Witch Cave, Adams, Tennessee. Adams, Tennessee looks like your standard rural Tennessee town. Quiet roads, farmland, not much traffic. Then you dig into the history and realize that this place has been carrying around one of America's most famous paranormal stories, like it's as common as mail being delivered. Back in the early 1800s, the Bell family claimed that they were dealing with a spirit that didn't just haunt the house. It interacted, it talked, it told people what to do, it insulted people, and it reportedly had a stacked social calendar. This wasn't some shadow in the corner situation. This thing had opinions, strong ones. The cave tied to the legend became the centerpiece over time, drawing curiosity seekers, skeptics, and people who thought, yeah, I'll go check out a place where a ghost allegedly ran a household like an anal retentive HOA president. Sounds like a great weekend. These days, it's a full-on attraction, but locals treat it with that cautious respect that says, we're not confirming anything, but we're also not messing with it. Now, what I find strange about this is the longevity of the story. 2 centuries later, people are still talking about it like it might have happened last week. Most towns move on from their weird chapter. Adams turned it into a feature, which I'm sure the local shop owners enjoy. Stop number 2. Rugby, Tennessee. Rugby is what happens when a Victorian-era idealist decides to build the perfect society and forgets to account for reality. Founded in the 1880s by Thomas Hughes, the town was meant to be a refined utopian community for educated British men. In other words, snobs with sticks up their butts that like to read. They wanted no industrial chaos, no grime, just intellectual life, culture, and presumably a lot of discussions that ended with someone saying, "Bloody hell." Now, it didn't last. Turns out creating the perfect society in the middle of Tennessee requires more than ambition and a library. The population dwindled, the dream faded, and Rugby quietly slipped into the background. Today, it's preserved in a way that almost feels intact. The buildings are still there, the layout still makes sense, but it feels like the town is waiting for residents who already gave up a century ago. It's not abandoned, it's just on pause. The weirdness here is subtle. Nothing's jumping out at you like a ghost with opinions. It's the stillness, the sense that something was supposed to happen here long term and it just didn't work out. Like a plan that sounded great in a meeting and then nobody followed up with it. Which I find hard to believe because this sounds like a great idea. I mean, think about it. This country's had a lot of bad ideas that people still saw through to the end. Like, can you imagine at some point someone was in a meeting and said, you know what, I got a great idea for a movie. Sharknado. Stop number 3, Skullbone, Tennessee. You know, you don't accidentally name a place Skullbone. That's a decision, a bold one, probably made by someone who's been working through some issues. The kind of guy that names a place Skullbone is the kind of guy who probably got beat up in high school by a girl in front of all his friends. But the real origin of the name is a little murky, which somehow makes it worse. Some stories suggest that remains were found in the area, including a couple skulls. Others hint at rough early history involving settlers and conflicts. There's even stories that it was once a burial ground for Native Americans. Either way, nobody seems eager to replace it with something, let's say, more welcoming. Historically, Skullbone is just a small rural community. Farms, quiet roads, nothing flashy, no major industry, no big historical turning point that explains the name in a neat little package. That's where it gets strange. The name promises drama. It suggests something happened here that should come with a documentary, a warning sign, and maybe even an Unsolved Mysteries episode. Instead, you get calm, quiet countryside, and road signs that feel like they're overselling the experience. The disconnect is what sticks with you. It's like walking into a movie labeled Apocalypse and then finding out it's about gardening at a retirement community. Technically, it's fine. It's just not what you were expecting. At least up here in the Pacific Northwest, we got a town called Battleground. And a battle happened there, so it was technically Battleground. This place, there's no reason for it. Number 4, Sweetwater, Tennessee. Sweetwater is one of those towns that plays it completely straight until you realize what's sitting underneath it. On the surface, it's a typical Tennessee town. Shops, neighborhoods, people going about their lives. Then you learn it's built over the Lost Sea, the largest underground lake in the United States, and suddenly everything feels like it should come with an explanation and maybe some pictures. The cave system was discovered in the early 1900s and has been used for everything from mining to Cold War storage experiments. At some point, someone decided the best use of this massive underground lake was to turn it into a tourist attraction where people ride boats into the total darkness surrounded by rock formations and pray something isn't lurking in the water. Today, it's one of the town's biggest draws, and visitors line up for the experience. Meanwhile, residents just live their lives knowing that there's an entire hidden world beneath them, and they really don't think about it unless they own some kind of shop that caters to tourists. And that's where the strange part is. Sweetwater treats this massive, slightly surreal feature like it's completely normal. Like, oh yeah, there's a lake underneath us. Anyway, how's your day going? Do you need a mimosa? Now, I say it's the largest underground lake, but it's the largest discovered underground lake. A lot of people will point that out. Who knows? I just don't want to be there when some creature comes out of some underground lake. Been hiding underneath there for a millennium, just waiting to come to life. Probably when the Simpsons have their last episode, something like that. Stop number 5, Paris, Tennessee. Paris, Tennessee took a look at its name and decided to commit to it with zero hesitation. Founded in the early 1800s, it developed like many southern towns, with farming and local businesses. Nothing really strange about that. Then, somewhere along the line, the town leaned into its identity by building a replica Eiffel Tower in the middle of Tennessee. Not a small one, and not one as big as the original Eiffel Tower, but a good representation. This one's 70 feet high, or 21 meters. It's about 5 feet taller than the one they have in Paris, Texas. That one's only 65 feet. Today, the tower in Paris, Tennessee stands as the town's most recognizable feature, drawing visitors in and giving Paris a personality that's hard to ignore. It's charming, but it also creates a weird contrast. You know, you're in West Tennessee, surrounded by everything you'd expect from the region, and then there's a symbol of France just standing there like it belongs. The strangeness isn't the tower itself, it's how confident it exists in a place where it logically shouldn't. It's just kind of quirky and weird. I guess it's one of those things you just do if your town happens to be named Paris. You build an Eiffel Tower and call it a day. Brings in some tourist dollars. I mean, I'm sure it brings in some, not a bunch. Not like people are traveling far and wide to come see the Paris, Tennessee Eiffel Tower. But it is definitely a local oddity. I mean, maybe they do. People get off the highway to see the largest ball of twine in like Kansas or Nebraska, wherever it is. All right, if you're ever west of Nashville, go see the Eiffel Tower in Paris, Tennessee. If you get the angle right, you might convince your friends you've actually been to Paris, France. Number 6, Ducktown, Tennessee. Ducktown is a great example of why you shouldn't judge a place by its name. Back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, it became a major hub for copper mining. The industry brought jobs, growth, happy families, but it also brought environmental damage on a level that turned the surrounding landscape into something that looked completely stripped of life. The process of mining copper released sulfur dioxide into the air, killing vegetation and leaving the hills bare. At one point, the area was described as one of the most polluted places in the country. Not exactly what you picture when you hear the name Ducktown. You expect parks with ponds, ducks all over the place. Efforts over the years have restored much of the land, and today it looks better than it once did. But the history is still part of its identity, and you can't fully separate the town from what happened there. But Ducktown, it's like, why? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Back in the day, there was a Cherokee village here. It had a couple names, but one of them was Kawana, which means duck place. The village's name was recorded on Cherokee annuity distribution rolls as Ducktown in 1799. Now, according to tradition, Ducktown was named after Cherokee leader named Chief Duck. There's a few different stories about it. Stop 7. Red Boiling Springs, Tennessee. Northeast of Nashville, Red Boiling Springs built a reputation on something most towns probably would try and downplay: In the late 1800s and early 1900s, it became a health resort destination centered around mineral springs. People believed the waters had healing properties, so hotels and bathhouses popped up to accommodate visitors looking to soak their problems away. Most people use booze, others use hot red water. The water gets its color and its smell from its mineral content, especially iron. It's great for branding if your goal is to stand out. Less great if you're trying to convince people it's relaxing. Today, the town is a lot quieter, but the history is still visible in the old buildings and the continued focus on the springs. It's part of their identity, whether it makes sense to modern visitors or not. The strange part is its commitment. Entire businesses were built around water that most people would politely decline if it showed up in a glass at your dinner. I like a good hot spring. I don't know if I'd want to get in one that was all red and reeked of iron. I don't know. Would you try a hot spring with red water? Let me know in the comment section. All right, before we get to number 1, if you want to move to these small towns, I can find you a realtor. Well, I can't find you. There's a cool website called Home and Money in the description area below. They can get you in touch with a real estate agent anywhere in the country. It's a pretty cool website. You should check it out. All right, on to our last stop. Stop number 8, Lynchburg, Tennessee. Lynchburg has one of the most famous identities in Tennessee, and it comes with a built-in contradiction. It's home to Jack Daniel's, a distillery that produces one of the most recognizable whiskey brands in the world. Its operation dates back to the 1800s and draws visitors from all over. Here's the twist though. Lynchburg sits in a dry county, meaning alcohol sales are heavily restricted. So you've got a town built around whiskey that doesn't fully embrace the idea of selling the whiskey like a normal place would. And as we've learned, there's a lot of very abnormal places in Tennessee. And I'm not even talking about the hollers and the backwoods you can find. That's a whole lot of weird. Historically, this comes from a mix of prohibition-era laws and local preferences that stuck around long after the rest of the country moved on. Today, you could go for a tour at the distillery, learn the process, and experience the brand. But rules around alcohol still add a layer of irony that's hard to ignore. And that's what makes this place so strange. The town's identity is completely tied to whiskey, but it still treats it like something that needs a few extra rules just to keep things interesting. I don't drink whiskey myself except for one time a year. An army buddy of mine passed away a few years ago, and he said, if you think about me, have a Jack and Coke. That's what he loved to drink. So every year on his birthday, I have a Jack and Coke. But yeah, I think Lynchburg's a really interesting place because it's just, you know, it's in a dry county, and they create one of the most recognizable whiskeys in the country, if not the world. All right, so if Tennessee were a movie, it wouldn't stick to one genre. It would start as a calm road trip, turn into historical drama, take a hard left into something paranormal, and finish with a tourist strip that looks like a lost bet. And somehow, it all fits. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.